There's no point to an introduction, so let's just roll the title screen. NASCAR drivers can, will, and have gone to the bathroom in the suit. While it is certainly not a common thing, there's not much you can say to your bladder when you have to race at 200 miles an hour. This has become such a problem in the past that according to Hank Rogers of R&H Racing, part of the crew's job is actually to monitor the eating and food expulsion of drivers the day before a race, making sure they eat no later than 11 p.m. the night before. However, some drivers have wet their pants in the circuit, and some drivers have done a whole lot worse. Next, a lot of people think the first speeding ticket was in 1902. However, sources say that it goes back to even earlier, all the way back to 1896, where a man by the name of Walter Arnold was issued a ticket for going 4 times the speed limit. To put that in perspective, the speed limit was 2 miles an hour. Guess he didn't want anybody to see him.
2 miles an hour, so everybody sees you. 2 miles an hour, so everybody sees you.
F1 cars are so aerodynamic that at 120 miles an hour, they can actually drive upside down. Basically, the body of the car forces it to the ground in order to have superior traction and handling, which means that at proper speeds, it will stick to pretty much anything. So yes, if you could somehow afford it, you could build a giant pipeline and have F1 cars race upside down, just like F-Mega.
F-Mega! Select your car.
In the late 1960s, the Dodge Charger had to go through massive aerodynamic changes for that year's NASCAR season, creating what would eventually be called the Dodge Charger Daytona, aka my dream car. But the reason behind these changes wasn't only because they wanted to go faster. No, the main reason for this change was because when the Charger reached speeds of almost 200 miles an hour, air would catch under the front end and start lifting the car up, creating a dangerous loss of control. Of course, to be honest, I don't know why anyone would think that driving a muscle car that has the aerodynamics of a brick, I might add, at 200 miles an hour, that didn't seem like a good idea from the start, guys. The largest fine for speeding ever recorded went to a Swedish man who was charged 1 million Swedish krona, which is equal to roughly 109,000 USD, almost 96,000 euros, and 542,000 Brazilian reals. The reason why it was so high was because Swedish speeding tickets are directly proportional to your income. Next fact, in 1985, a world record was set by Royal Marines, where they removed and replaced an entire engine in a mind-boggling 42 seconds. Apparently, they practiced for 2 weeks using an old Ford Escort. Meanwhile, it takes me roughly 5 to 10 minutes to replace a carburetor, which honestly I thought was actually pretty good, but apparently not. In South Africa, in order to keep drivers safe, an inventor by the name of Charles Fori, am I pronouncing that right? I don't know. Created a little anti-car theft device called the Blaster. The Blaster was actually a side-mounted flamethrower that, with the push of a button, would set possible assailants alight.
Do you know any post offices?
The highest mileage ever recorded on a car was roughly 3 million miles on a 1966 Volvo 1800S. Irving Gordon claims that he kept his car in tip-top shape, changing the oil every 3,500 miles and changing the transmission fluid every 25,000 miles. Meanwhile, I am not sure if the differential fluid in my car has ever been changed since it rolled off the assembly line 50 years ago. I should probably check that out, to be honest. If you own a Ford GT, chances are you will be safe in the event of a rollover. That's because apparently during the roof crush safety test, the Ford GT actually broke the crushing machine, much to the astonishment of every engineer in the testing room. And yes, while the Tesla Model S did the exact same thing, the Ford GT probably looked a lot more impressive while doing it. To put things in perspective, this is what a failed roof test looks like. BMW actually had to recall their GPS system because apparently many male German drivers refused to take orders from a computer with a womanly voice. I know, I couldn't believe it either. Apparently these German men wanted a strong male leader to guide them. I think I found a good one, guys.
Alright, let's go. Alright. Hit the button. Alright, got it.
For all intents and purposes, that was a joke. I know you Germans aren't Nazis anymore. In Switzerland, it is technically illegal to slam a car door after 10 p.m. This is due to a law that doesn't allow any loud noises after that time. And it just so happens that slamming a car door is apparently above the decibel test. If a remote unlock button is pressed on a key out of the range of its car 256 times in a row, that key will now be considered useless. Don't ask me how they figured this one out. A Franciscan monk in the 1200s actually predicted the existence of cars. This one was pretty hard to find actually, but believe it or not, it is true. The monk's name was Roger Bacon. Chrysler actually created a jet car in the 1960s. The Chrysler turbine had around 130 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. It also could apparently run on pretty much everything, including perfume, wine, and of course, jet fuel. The Pope's car of choice is apparently the G-Wagon, painted completely white and with an open top. This places the Pope in a group of celebrities that also own G-Wagons, fitting right between T.I. and Kylie Jenner. The Ford Mustang wasn't always the coupe that we all know and love. In fact, back in 1966, there were several variations of the car that were planned, including a wagon and an El Camino-like truck. Honestly, I wish both of these also made it to production, because in my personal opinion, they look pretty cool. And that's about all I got. If you want a part 2, please let me know down in the comments below. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I got all my social media linked down there, as well as a Patreon where you could potentially get some goodies. I'd highly recommend checking that out. Also, special thanks to my first patron, JC². He's been helping me a lot with this channel, and I feel like he deserves at least this little bit of recognition. You can find his channel and his t-shirt shop also down in the description below. Anyways, that wraps everything up. I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.